What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Curtis, and today I want to encourage you to check your sources. Sources of what? Well, let's get into it. In Matthew chapter 24, verse 4, it says, "Short and sweet. And Jesus answered and said to them, Take heed that no one deceives you. For many," let's go to 5. "For many will come in my name, saying, I am the Christ, and will deceive many." We have to be careful because the deception of the enemy is never obvious. It's very subtle. You think about it. In the Garden of Eden, he didn't just come out and say, "Hey, I'm Lucifer, I'm Satan, I'm the guy that got kicked out. Eat this apple." No, he was very subtle. He twisted the word, he turned truth into lies, and he spun it, and he deceives people. If you think that you're smarter than Adam and Eve were, people who walked with God, talked with God on the daily, and not just like in faith, like physically, then you have already been deceived and you are in danger. But it feels right when you get deceived. It feels good. It often aligns with what you already want and honestly what you believe. And it's very important to understand that and to ask yourself two questions, right? Who is shaping what I believe in right now? Who is shaping what I believe right now? And is it God's word? Is it culture? Is it emotions? Or is it popular voices? What is shaping who you are? Because I'm guilty of shaping my life around fitness people, chasing after that physique and the muscles and the abs and all that stuff. And after I've achieved those goals, right? You know what I felt? I still felt like I needed to keep proving myself for whatever reason. To my wife, to the people around me. It became more of a vanity thing and less of a, hey, I want to be a better me thing. Because we all use that lie to ourselves when we're chasing something vain or chasing something selfish. I need to be better, It's a huge lie. Like, let it go. You can't change who you are. Only God can do that. And if that offends you, get over yourself because it's the truth. Confidence means nothing if it's built on the wrong source. What do I have here? I have something written down here. If you don't check your source, you'll follow your lie with confidence, right? Even in the Garden of Eden, going back to that, it was, they said what they said with confidence, even though they knew it was a lie. It's like, oh, we're ashamed and, we're naked and, this is how we feel. And it was like, but who called you that? Who said you were? But you're so confident in the lie because you believed something already. I often think, like, what if Adam and Eve would have repented? Could God have reset things? Could he have taken that from them? I think so, because when we're ashamed of our choices, when we may do things we're not, particularly proud of. I was huge into pornography and lust and had an affair and, very abusive to my family and things that honestly, I had some very dark thoughts about, taking myself out of the equation at one point. And God took all that away whenever I repented and I gave it up to him. I unplugged myself from all that negativity and I plugged myself into his word and into his power, and it was freeing. I'm not saying that Adam and Eve, couldn't be reset, like a hard reboot or whatever, but could things have been different? Instead of pointing fingers and making it worse. I don't know, just some people thought. Let's deter from that rabbit hole back to the video at hand here. But you can't build strong faith on a weak foundation, right? If you're saying you have faith, that's great. But a lot of people say they have faith, but what are you having faith in? Because a lot of people have faith in, I have 4 things written down here: their feelings, other people's emotions and opinions, motivational content in social media, and their own understanding, what they think they know. But real faith is rooted in truth and not preference, right? I don't prefer Paul to Andrew. I don't prefer Peter to Simon. I don't prefer, John to Mark. It's all word. It's all truth. It all has to be, what I take in. I have to have myself rooted in the entire word, not just part of it. And, that goes for a whole, right? I'd rather be Methodist than Catholic. I'd rather be Presbyterian than Lutheran. I'd rather be Pentecostal Christian than Apostolic Christian. There's a whole bunch of things that we try and separate ourselves because that's what we prefer to see ourselves as. When really, if you're not drawing from the Word of God and its wholeness, then what are you drawing from? You're drawing from some half-truth. You're drawing from some, self-authored word that isn't fully of God. And if it's not fully of God, then it's not of God, right? So what you trust will determine how you stand when the pressure hits, when the storms are raging and the waves are crashing around you. Are you going to be able to keep walking on the water? Are you going to be able to keep, moving forward, against all that? Because if your source is unstable, your faith is going to be unstable. Are you going to be the guy that built his house on the rock? Are you going to be the guy that built his house on the sand? I don't know. You have to answer those questions for yourself. I'm not here to tell you how to live. I'm just here to inspire you because he rose to save us. He rose and when we rise with him, we become brand new. So if you haven't risen with Christ yet, maybe it's time to take that step forward and dedicate yourself and declare him as Lord and to start walking with him. Because, we have to understand that, not everything spiritual is from God. There's so many spiritual mediums out there, like crystals and New Age and tarot readings and palm readings and astrology and all that stuff. And, astrology, I think, has a good case because God said the stars there. So I think there is something to be seen in the stars. And one of the people I look up to, Troy Brewer, is big about the stars. And I believe that is the thing. But I think dedicating yourself to a Cancer sign or to a Capricorn or as a Leo or whatever, I think that's just absolute bollocks. But you have to make discernment and understand that, there's only one there's a lot of spiritual mediums, there's only one spiritual victory, and that's in this word, and that's in Jesus Christ. Because all those other things, they're not going to lead you anywhere. They're going to scam you out of tons of money, and that's the crazy thing. You don't want to tithe $10, $20, $100 in church, but you'll spend $250 to hear Miss Cleo tell you about some possible future that honestly any mentalists can do to make you feel better about your future. Or you'll go to some tarot card reading and pay someone $150 for 30 seconds of being told, well, here's your 3 cards, and this one's going to lead you to prosperity, this one will lead you into death, this one will lead you, to a balanced life, or you'll be happy, but then you are going to die. No crap. That's kind of how life works. We're all going to die. Our choices are going to determine where we end up. And can we find balance? Yeah, but we can find victory in Jesus. So he didn't warn us, Jesus didn't warn us about an obvious evil. He said they're going to come and they're going to try and deceive you, and they're going to try and, work themselves into your life, and they're going to try and, become attached to you, and they're not going to show themselves at first. They're going to kind of cling to you and whisper little things in your ear, Lord of the Rings, King Theoden was a great king, an awesome king, a powerful king. And, Wormtongue, got in there and worked his sorcery and, spun it and almost killed him. Had him, walking around on his hands and knees like a dog, if you will. But that means that some things are going to look close to the truth, but they're not going to be blatantly wrong. They're going to be just enough that you don't see how wrong they are. And we have to be very, very aware of when that happens and how that's going to happen. So the real question and how you discern, Curtis, well, what do we do? How do we tell the truth from the falseness and this, that, next thing? It's does it align with the word? It's so simple. If we align everything with this word, we can't be deceived because the word is truth. The word is God. The word was given to us to overcome and to be victorious in everything. So does it align with the word? Is it moving and ebbing and flowing with the Spirit? Is it doing you good? Is it doing you harm? Is it doing the people around you good? Is it doing the people around you harm? All these things we have to take into account, because the devil doesn't always attack you outright. Sometimes he'll pick and choose little points in your life that he knows can affect you, and that's when he'll work. And does this thing that I'm doing, believing, following, checking, plugging into, does it bring me closer to God? Does it just make me feel good on the inside? Is it an emotional feeling? Is it just like a happy little wiggle feeling where you're like, oh, this feels so great, I like this? But is it doing you any good? Is it bringing you closer to God? Is it inspiring you to get into the Word? Or is it actually slightly pulling you away and distracting you? I don't know. You don't just need to believe in something. You need to believe God. You need to walk it out. You need discernment on what you're believing. And that's what I have for you guys today. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Peace out. God bless. And I love y'all.